Yeah, now I also got the information. That's last. As this international component, I would not put the focus on MENA.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Now, but we are already now live streamed on. Now, should we let in some of the speakers?
Yes.
Okay. Hallo, wir gehen relativ bald live. One issue, I can't distinguish who is in the waiting room and who is in the meeting. So
you should be able to see this if you scroll down. There's a small line that says in the meeting.
Yeah, but if I close the ones in the meeting, I see myself twice, and I'm only once in the meeting, the waiting room, and I once in the. Anyway.
Yes, very nice.
So have you seen my screen when I showed it?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, I was just testing that. Yeah.
What I'm thinking is I have the option through my PowerPoint to have subtitles. If we simultaneously share, people who need Arabic translation can basically look at my screen and should see what you will say later in Arabic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to set that up for your PowerPoint?
No, I haven't tried before.
Right.
If you share your screen, I can show you.
Okay.
Very quickly, we have 3 more of the panelists and speakers. Camilla, Baise, and Chandra.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're just testing everything.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
If you go to slideshow, Amgad.
Yeah.
You have to
Or you mean the
cannot.
menu?
Yeah, the menu.
Ah, all right.
Slideshow, yes. And
Yeah.
then on the very right, it should say somewhere subtitles. I can hear all this on my screen. That's fine.
I don't see it.
Might be that you don't have it yet.
Yeah, maybe I don't have the recent version or something.
That could be. That's fine. That's fine. We'll figure. Okay.
Okay.
So I will share my screen and then we can let everyone in.
Yeah, I will stop my sharing.
And Sigrid, can you also post maybe in the waiting room in 5 or 10 minutes that there's the YouTube live stream?
Yes, I will post that regularly.
Okay, very nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have Dr. Ismail as well?
No, I think he didn't log in yet.
Good morning, everyone there.
Good morning, Chandra. How are you?
Doing well.
Good morning.
Very good morning, Sigurd.
Okay.
Morning, everybody.
Everybody, Visa.
Morning.
Morning.
And thank you all for being part of this event. At the moment, only speakers and panelists are in. Thank you. Victoria, will you now share the screen so we can let the others in?
Yes. Let me just make it the slideshow. Okay.
Ah, nice to see you. Yeah.
Screen sharing should work. And
I started to admit people.
okay. I think you can also let everyone in now so that we can get started. Okay, good morning, everyone. Please make sure you are muted so no background noises are gonna disturb. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I also hope you can see my screen while we're waiting for some more people. At the bottom of my screen, you should be able to see Arabic translation. I cannot guarantee that it's perfect Arabic. It's a PowerPoint Google option, but I hope it helps for those who have difficulties with English. While we are waiting for some more people to log in and during the event, please make sure you are muted. so no background noises or accidental phone calls will disturb the whole event. And I would like to start very quickly before the official start with the survey, which everyone I think knows now. Some interaction. Just scan the QR code. It should appear. Yes, you can scan the QR code or just enter slido.com and enter the code and enter your data. Let's see where everyone is from. Nice, we have people from Germany, South Australia, Greece, Netherlands, Egypt, Norway, Jordan, Spain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, India, France, Germany again. Very, very nice.
Some have also started to write it in the chat room. That is also perfectly okay.
Yes, that is absolutely fine. I can also open this here. Iraq, Kenya. I will save this. Okay. Very, very interesting. Syria as well.
Sorry, I don't know how to write. I am from Sudan.
Welcome. Okay. Please make sure to mute yourself so we don't have background noises. And we will also have a very short, quick quiz on what do you know about the desert day and the desert itself. So let me go to the next screen. Okay, same thing, same link. You can join the quiz now. And this is the first question. Where was the term desertification developed? You can also write the answers in the chat. I know time is a little bit short, so let me go back. Does anyone know where the term desertification was developed or where it came from? Ah, yes. So a majority says Mexico, some say Egypt, some say China. The truth is it came from Egypt. Next question, or let's see the leaderboard first. So Anna was the fastest in answering this. Which is the largest desert in the world? Sahara, Gobi, Atacama, or the Great Basin in North America? There are many more, but this is just a selection. And I see a lot of people in the chat are also saying Sahara. Let's see. Yes, everyone said Sahara. This is correct, of course. And Anna again was the fastest. Richard also very quickly. Sigurd, Athanasios, I hope I pronounced that right. And last question, when was the World Day to Combat Desertification established for the first time? (1990, 1995, 2005. I'm just reading some answers from the chat as well. So 75% said 1995, 13% 1990, 2005 was answered by 13%. But yes, the majority is right. It's 1995 from the UNCCD. Okay. And again, Anna, congratulations. You answered everything correctly in the fastest time. That's possible. And place 2 for Richard. He answered 2 out of 3 correctly in 20 seconds. And Athanasios, 3rd place, also very good. Thank you very much for participating in this. Yes, it's going to move. And now you should also be able to see the Arabic translation again. So, welcome everybody to today's online event to honor the World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought. We will look at regreening the desert as a solution, especially challenges and opportunities. Sorry. I'm Victoria Tempe. I'm here working with Heliopolis University, doing the start, co-organizing the event. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to write them in the chat. We will, together with my team, try to answer everything as good as possible. Now, let me introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Heliopolis. He is the Chief Executive Officer of SECAM Holding, which is the Initiative for Sustainable Development in the Egyptian Desert, working holistically in the 4 pillars of sustainable development: ecology, economy of love, social life, and cultural life. He is also chair of the Board of Trustees of Heliopolis University for Sustainable Development and the president of the Biodynamic Federation, Demeter International, in which he has been involved since its foundings in 1997. Thank you, Helmi, for joining us and giving this speech. We're looking very much forward to it, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to share with you this wonderful day and this wonderful occasion, and hopefully can also contribute a little bit with our experience in this. And because I only have 15 minutes, I will take you quickly on a trip, let's say, through our experience with regreening the desert. And when did it start, this experience of regreening the desert in Egypt, in SECAM? This was obviously 1977. In 1977, my late father, Ibrahim Abouleish, decided that he wants to go back from Austria to establish his dream, a dream about a community, a sustainable community in the desert, where people can unfold their individual potential, where they live together in dignity and respect, and produce economic products according to the highest ecological and ethical principles. This was a wonderful vision in 1977, but obviously because he wanted to base it on biodynamic agriculture, on what he called economy of love, instead of an economy of competition and worship, and based on human development. Everyone of his friends and family, whether it was in Austria or in Egypt, considered this a dream, an illusion, a mission impossible, which will never happen. There was no biodynamic agriculture. There was no biodynamic agriculture in the desert before, and regreening desert with biodynamic agriculture seemed not possible. And hence, nobody did really believe that this dream will ever come true. Now, the reason why I'm speaking to you today is that a miracle unfolded in the desert over the last 44 years. And in midst of the desert, with biodynamic agriculture, an oasis has been established where all crops which we can grow in Egypt are grown, where 2,000 people learn, live, and work together, where hundreds of kids go to our schools, and where a lot of food, pharmaceutical products, and textiles are produced, which are mainly sold in Egypt to the local market. So we have a lot of Demeter products, millions of filter bags and other products which are sold in the local market. Now, 10 years ago, the last piece of this miracle in the desert was accomplished when the Heliopolis University opened its doors for students, and this Heliopolis University for Sustainable Development with currently five faculties, including organic agriculture, including pharmacy, physiotherapy and complementary medicine, social entrepreneurship, and engineering, in particular renewable energy and sustainable water management and so on, has nearly 3,000 students today and is active in project and research all over Egypt. So the question is, how was it possible? How did this miracle come all about? And obviously, how much is this miracle linked to our founder, to the pioneer, to our visionary Ibrahim. This was always the question, and when in 2017 he passed away, and we as the Future Council came together to discuss what we want to accomplish over the next 40 years, what are the miracles we want to contribute to. We worked for nearly a year to establish what we call our vision for Egypt in 2057. Now, this is another presentation which I'm happy to share with you on another day, but included in this one, in this vision for Egypt, we have vision goals, second vision goals for Egypt, for the societal sphere, the cultural sphere, the economic sphere, and of course, the ecological sphere. And I would like to focus with you now on what are we doing to reach a state where everybody in Egypt grows biodynamic or organic crops, where we use organic and biodynamic crop to regreen deserts, where we use sustainable water management, we use 100% renewable energy, we improve our biodiversity and contribute to climate change mitigation. So we decided that we want to start on a new model farm in the desert, in the western desert of Egypt, in an oasis called Bahareya. And this is 2 years ago. This should be our model farm for regreening the desert, and the whole project is called Greening the Desert, and it has an own website, and we are happy to share with all of you much more information than I can do now in 10 minutes. But what is it all about? It is the attempt to prove that desert regreening, desert land reclamation works with biodynamic agriculture. And as you can see from this picture, we started 2 years ago. We have the first crops a year ago, and the whole process of reclaiming desert has started in this farm. And I want, as it was requested, share some of the opportunities and some of the challenges. The first is that any desert land reclamation with biodynamic agriculture can only work with compost. Compost, which we consider is the gold of the desert. Compost is the perfect way to recycle organic matter, to recycle organic manure and plant waste material and so on. And it improves, of course, the vitality of soils, it improves the quality of soils. But some of the opportunities. But what I would like to stress here are 3 things. One, that compost, when we add it to sand, can create living soils, can enable us to handle the salinity issues related with irrigation of desert soils, helps us to use less water, 20 to 40% less water per crop, and contributes to our soil carbon sequestration. I will come back to this point later on, but compost is in the midst of the this whole regreening initiative. And obviously there are also challenges. The challenge is what material do you use? What plant and animal manure do you use to create compost in the desert? But this is a thing which we are working on, which we have to continue to work on, and where there is still a lot of research needed. Then we come to water. Water is the most obvious challenge at desert regreening, and we are lucky to sit on the biggest aquifer of the world, the Nubian aquifer, but still it's a fossil water resource. And so how to use water in a responsible way, how to optimize water usage, reduce the water consumption per crop, how to come to a sustainable water management strategy in the desert is one of the biggest challenges. And obviously we are working on it. Obviously we have to cooperate with many, many experts in the field. And what adds to the complexity of this challenge, which is an ongoing quest, that we want to work only with renewable energy. And renewable energy is available, of course. The sun is giving us a lot of energy every day, but it is giving us this energy during the day. And so when we only have the energy during the day, we have the possibility to pump our water from our wells into our fields only during the day, where evaporation and water losses are much higher than during the night, which is not nice for water consumption. It's not nice for our plants, and hence there is still a lot to be researched, a lot to be further developed in regard to water optimization and how to storage renewable energy in a feasible way to use water not only during the day but also during the night. On the other side, we are very happy that on this farm we can already prove today that with renewable energy, 100% renewable energy, you can actually work and get out your water, irrigate your plants. This is what makes this greening the desert effort a very special pilot and prototype. Now, what is as important as soil carbon sequestration, what is as important as living soils, is obviously protection from sandstorms, protection from all the surrounding challenges, and to build up biodiversity. And to reach this, we have from the very beginning decided to grow 1 million trees on this farm, which has about 1,000 hectares. And this means that this is quite a big number of trees, which leads to another question. No question that trees are needed, the trees are protecting us from the environment, the trees are improving biodiversity. But at the same time, we have also to care and think what ways of agroforestry can we further develop, where trees and plants are not only competitors of water, but really working together hand in hand to improve livelihoods for the people who work there. So another challenge which is obviously ongoing. We are happy that we have already 200,000 of the trees planted over the last 2 years, and that we are continuously adding to them new trees and learning by doing, of course, led to a situation where for the first time now this year we are planting trees which extract all the water they need from the surrounding air. And this is a possibility which will enable us to go to a more sustainable water management very soon. Altogether, we have here a situation where out of these 24 pivots, which will build up over the next 10 years, where we will cultivate about 1,200 acres, we will feed more than 2,000 people. But what is also very interesting, we will sequester in our soils nearly 2,800 tons of carbon, which equals the carbon emission of 1,000 Egyptians. So this will be not only a carbon neutral place, but it will be a carbon positive initiative. And let me now very quickly, because of time, just mention in 3 words that yes, the Regreening the Desert initiative, which I just shared with you, is obviously an initiative which is very much linked to ecosystem restoration, to ecosystem development, to agriculture, to forestation and agroforestry and many, many other things. But in the end, to make it very clear, the miracle we have in Sekem over the last 40 years, the miracle we want to create there only work in a holistic approach. So it's not only about agriculture, it's also about economy of love. It's also about a new way to deal in the supply chain where everybody gets a fair share of the added value. It's also about integrative medicine and health, which we provide to all the people, the 120 people who work there now, and which is an important path, especially in our times nowadays, of any development initiative, but also about education and culture. We have built up a school, a very holistic school for the kids of our workers and the people around in the villages. We have a theater there where we have weekly performances, because we believe that it's as important as the agricultural part is the inspiration, the culture, the education to achieve miracles. Having said all this, I want to stop and conclude with something a very famous German poet said. He said, knowing is not enough, we must apply. And willing or wanting is not enough, we must do. And in this spirit, we are working since 44 years. In this spirit, we believe there are no mission impossibles. There are no places in the world which cannot achieve such miracles. And we hope that many, many others everywhere in the world will join us in regreening the desert with a sustainable approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helmi. Very interesting and impressive. Okay. Are there any questions directly to Helmi right now? I would say we can answer 1 or 2 before we continue.
Dr. Gad Al-Mahdi, you've raised your hand.
You are muted.
Dr. Muhammad.
Yes, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Helmi, and I might seize this occasion to honor the memory of our pioneer, the late Abu Aish, with a proposal. I address that to Mr. Helmi. My proposal is to establish an observatory at Heliopolis University that represents Egypt's civil society to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, to the UNSCD, especially that we lack civil society representation as the other member states of the convention. Please go ahead, and I would be very happy to help by that.
Thank you very much. I'm obviously more than happy to commit ourselves at Heliopolis University to jointly with you to do such a step, which I also believe will contribute to sharing this very important facts and movement more in the academic and society at large in Egypt.
Okay. Just a reminder for everyone, please, when you don't speak, make sure you mute yourself. And we had one other question in the chat that I would like to share. Let me just get the name. Vanessa Lehmann asked, she would like to know more about the plants, tree species, and produce that are being planted in the Bahreya farm. And where the workforce come from. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this, Helmi.
Obviously, first of all, I want to say, because time here is, I think, limited, that I'm very happy to also connect to you, Vanessa, later on, and giving you much more information than I can give now in few sentences. But I can tell you, obviously, this is the Oasis Bahreya. The most common tree there are palm trees, of course, but we are also growing all other trees which are home in Egypt, like Sarsur, like Gazoline, and many other varieties. We are now starting to test acacia varieties, moringa, and many other plants, which, as I said, can live on the water extracted from the air. And we are happy to share information and learn more on this topic. People are coming from the Oasis Bahreya, where we have many partners in biodynamic palm farms, but also from our whole surrounding. We have biodynamic farmers from Aswan to Alexandria. We have them and their families. We offer to our community, but also to our graduates at the Vocational Training Center and at the university, the opportunity to work in this regreening project. So we have people from all over Egypt joining there. We have the first families now there. And as I said, our school will start in September with the first few kids in the primary school. So it's starting. And by the way, we have also already some foreigners who are living there together with our local people. So I hope it will be a multicultural community very soon.
Thank you for sharing this. As much as I would love to answer every single question right now, we will later have a Q&A session. Please keep the questions until then. And like Helmi said, he's happy to also answer questions if you get in touch with him directly. Now, I would like to move on to the panel, and therefore, first of all, introduce our moderator, Dr. Amgad El Mahdi. He's the director of the Middle East and North Africa MENA office of the International Water Management Institute. He is also senior regional water analyst for solutions and water accounting specialists. And before he was joining IWMI, the International Water Management Institute, he was head of water research section and chief supervising hydrologist in Australia. Dr. Al-Mahdi has over 25 years of working experience in the fields of hydrology, natural resource management, and operational research, and academic agencies in many countries. Dr. Al-Mahdi's mission is to provide evidence-based science and low-cost solutions to sustainably manage water and land resources for water and food security, people's livelihoods, and the environment. He is the Australian representative for several international agencies, such as the ICID, International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage, and the chair of the IWRA Water Security Bureau, so the International Water Resource Association. Before I hand over to him, I will also introduce our other speakers, which we're very thankful for having today. There is Dr. Bezaid, and I hope I pronounce it right. She is a social scientist with Hectares Resilient Agro-Silvopastoral Systems program, and she has over 20 years of experience in the field of development, focusing on food security, agriculture and rural development, livelihood improvements, and gender mainstreaming. Examples of topics of interest for her include technology adaptation and adoption, agriculture, water and land management, and building resilience of socio-ecological systems to withstand shocks and sustainably support livelihoods. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Beza. Beza currently works as a social science specialist, where she strives to link research to development and mainstream gender in agriculture research. Her current and past projects are Hectares span over several countries, including Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, West Bank, Tunisia, Syria, Yemen, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. And she will also highlight later the role of gender in regreening the desert. Also with us today is Ms. Camilla Lassen. She is an economist with more than 20 years experience in assisting developing countries in adopting policies, strategies, and practices promoting land restoration and the sustainable use of natural resources. In her current role as a senior partnerships and resource mobilization coordinator at the UNCCD, she is leading a team of specialists in building partnerships with the private sector, incubating technical and digital innovations in land restoration. The UNCCD was established in 1994. The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification is the sole legally binding international agreement linking environment and development to sustainable land management. The convention's 197 parties work together to improve their living conditions for people in dry lands, to maintain and restore land and soil productivity, and to mitigate the effects of drought. Thank you for being with us, and welcome, Ms. Camilla. We also have with us today, and I hope he joined already, Professor Dr. Ismail Galia, who is the former chairman of the Desert Research Center and former head of the Agriculture Office at the Embassy of Egypt in Washington, USA. He was the national focal point of Egypt from 2003 to 2012 to the UNCCD with over 30 years of experience, and he provided technical assistance for international institutions and national organizations. Thank you for joining us and being with us, and we're very much looking forward to the insights from your experience. We then have Dr. Iman Sayed. She is currently the head of the planning sector of water resources in the national, and she is the coordinator of the EU Water Starts project, which aims to foster the reform process of water sector in Egypt. She took up the leading in creating the dialogue among several development partners and several governmental and non-governmental organizations, having water-related interests to support the implementation of National Water Resource Plan. Dr. Iman has more than 22 years of experience in a wide range of water resource planning and management aspects: climate change, hydrological modeling, remote sensing, DSS, and knowledge management. We're very happy that you're joining us, Dr. Iman, and I hope you were also able to log in meanwhile. Yes, this should have worked. I would also like to already introduce our speaker for the closing remark, so that then we can focus on the panel directly. The closing remark will be given by Dr. Hamu Lamrani. He has a PhD in Environment and Water Management and is currently Senior Expert at the Center for International Migration and Development, Policy Advisor in the WEF Nexus, and Coordinator of Regional Initiative on the Nexus Water, Energy, Food Security in the Arab Region, League of Arab States, Economic Affairs in Cairo, Egypt. Also, again, from our side, thank you very much, everyone who is here. Welcome to all participants again from my side. And I would say, Dr. Amgad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Victoria, and welcome all our panels. I'm delighted to be the moderator of that panel with that great expertise, where they represent different backgrounds in relation to what we are going to discuss today, desertification. And if we look at the definitions of desertification, it's really the degradation of the land that in arid or semi-arid or even dry subhumid, which is really happening mostly by human activities and climate variations. But it's also, desertification doesn't really refer to the expansion of the existing desert. So it's really the impact on the dry land ecosystem that represents almost 30% from our world land area that get under vulnerability because of the overuse, the inappropriate land use, the level of poverty around it, the instability, deforestation that is always happening, overgrazing sometime, and also the poor irrigation practice in that area, which really reflected in low productivity of the land. So today, as we are gathering all together and with our expertise on the panel, we really need to look at how we can turn that degraded land into healthy land, how we can battle together the desertification. What are the solutions? But before we discuss the solution, the first part of this panel will try to reach a common consensus about what are really the key challenge. And with that, I think the first question I will put here for the panel: what do you see as a major challenge, and how can you or the project or the organization you are representing contributing in tackling this? And I would like to start with Ms. Camilla to give us from her international perspective, what are really the key challenge and how we can tackle them?
Yes, good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me, particularly on this very important day, the World Day to Combat Desertification. It is not a day that we should observe in silence, but it's really a call to action. We believe at the UNCCD to start treating land as the precious and limited natural capital that it is. And we all have a role to play in this because we all have a stake in our common future. We are losing 12 million hectares of fertile land every year. This equals, I've been told, something like 2,000 football fields per hour. And we've already lost 1/5 of our planet's fertile land to soil degradation. So if we are really to safeguard our future for our own current future of the planet, but also for future generations, we need to act fast, we need to act together, and we need to think big. So I wanted to give you the example today of one of these big dreams that I think can be an example of the scale we're looking at in terms of land restoration. So you've probably heard about the Great Green Wall, but it is really the biggest land restoration initiative that is out there. It has the scale and the ambition, I believe, that we need in order to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And it is an African-led movement with really an epic ambition to green or to restore degraded land across nearly 8,000 kilometers, all the way from Senegal to Djibouti, so the entire width of Africa. And the aim, the ambition is to restore 100 million hectares of degraded lands and create 10 million jobs by 2030. Now, we do believe that there's certain lessons learned more than a decade in that can also be useful for this conversation, but also for other regions of the world. First of all, I would say that ecosystem restoration at scale can really contribute to solve many of the global challenges that we're facing today. So climate change, food insecurity, desertification, drought, but also forced migration and conflict. And this is the integrated and holistic approach that I think Dr. Aboulesh mentioned in his opening remarks. That is really key, that we need to look at regreening or restoring land in a very holistic approach, looking at all these development issues together. Second, there is not one fits all solution, I would say. Every landscape and every community requires a tailored approach to combating desertification. And in the Great Green Wall, we see a combination of techniques and solutions in the different communities, and also a combination of very low tech and low cost solutions combined with more innovative technological approaches. We do see traditional approaches like planting trees, terracing slopes, adding organic material to the soil, controlling grazing animals, water harvesting, water retention, but also being increasingly combined with more innovative climate smart agriculture practices. We've seen, for example, in Jordan, there are companies trying to use seawater, sunlight, wind, and climate smart agriculture technology to grow crops inside and outside these saltwater cooled greenhouses. So, and there's also a solution we're exploring across the Sahel now of really increasing the water holding capacity of the soil by mixing clay with water for irrigation purposes, for example. So these are a mix of all the new techniques that we see are required. Maybe also an issue of sustainability. I think it's also was mentioned in the opening remarks. It's very easy to plant trees, but the key is really the sustainability of the efforts in regreening the deserts, and restoration must be tackled along the entire value chain we've seen. So from land and seeds to products and markets, and really future proofing of products as well. What products will sell in 10, 20, 30 years with the changing climate, and looking at also infrastructure and energy needs, so an integrated approach. Maybe finally, attracting international investments in technology. We have seen with a large-scale project like the Great Green Wall, the brand, the ambition is really attracting a lot of investments from, and also technologies from international actors. And we see that these can be matched with local and national solutions, so that we can create maybe small Great Green Walls in other regions where you create jobs and shorten the value chains, but also produce locally. So yeah, maybe I stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Camilla. That's really interesting insight, and looking at like investment, restoration, sustainability, and future generation. With that, I would like to go to Professor Ismail, taking your long-term experience in tackling the desertification from research perspective. How do you see that challenge, or the major challenge, and how have you been tackling that, taking your long experience in that topic?
Thank you very much, Dr. Amgad. Before actually I answer your question, I would like to make a very short comment on the previous speaker. Actually, we have to make a distinction between green and regreen. Green, I consider it as land reclamation. But while regreening is combating desertification. The reason I stress that because here in Egypt, they consider the horizontal expansion by adding land by land reclamation. It is combating desertification. Well, it's not. Combating desertification should be on land it's already cultivated and degraded by the desertification process. This is very short comment. Back to your actually question. I think the first point we should focus on the relation or the link between sustainability and desertification. Sustainability means maintaining a balance between ambitions and the resources. Sustainability means to keep actually working on this balance. Desertification usually occurs when the balance is disrupted. If I may say, if you have a few minutes and wish to get lunch, go ahead to falafel and food وطعمية shop, and never go to kebab shop. This is the case of the farmer who practices intensive agriculture on limited groundwater, which leads to desertification. Then when ambitiousness exceeds the reality, the natural resources, the capacity of the natural resources, that's the main cause of desertification. The second actually challenge is not to evaluate desertification case without comparing the current status with previous historical data for the same site, It means that we should have records or baseline. And this is a big challenge by us in Egypt. And I think in many other countries, this data is scattered between different institutes. And that's why I am calling for observatory actually to have this baseline together in the observatory. The third actually challenge, the consideration that the lands exposed to desertification are geographically located in dry, fragile areas that already suffer from water scarcity, whether rain, groundwater, or rivers. And therefore, we have actually to consider that. How to consider that? By the crop selection should be based on water use efficiency, and as we call crop per drop, it means that we have to work on improve the efficiency rather vertically rather than horizontally. The fourth actually challenge is to focus on transforming. This is a very important point. Is to focus on transforming the desertification phenomena from being invisible to being visible and measurable to the farmer and the decision maker. The fifth actually is to consider the longevity nature of the desertification process until its impacts become visible to the affected farmers. Therefore, this phenomenon is known as silent killer. Early observations are needed to avoid the stage of the desertification, just to avoid that kind of desertification which is irreversible. The importance of early detection, early warning, that will save 30% of the late treatment. There are actually some other challenges, but I stop here. If any of the participants would like to comment or any question, I would be very glad to answer.
Thanks, Professor Ismail, for fantastic inputs here and bringing that point of green for land reclamation and regreen is really for combating the desertification, that the land that get degraded by human activity or climate change. And you're also highlighting the limited groundwater. And with that, we'd like to go for Dr. Iman Said to take us from her perspective. What are really the key challenge to combating the desertification and how that related to the land reclamation and also the combating desertification using groundwater resources? Dr. Iman Said, please, the floor is yours. Is Dr. Iman with us?
She should be, but I will double check. Maybe meanwhile,
right.
you will
I will
go
move
on with
to
the next speaker.
Yeah, sure. So until Dr. Iman joining us and fixing connection, I would like to go for Dr.
Sorry,
Biza.
Dr. Amgad, I have some trouble in my connection. Okay. I'm just back again.
Perfect, thanks. Well, I'm glad you are with us. Yeah, I can repeat the question if you haven't heard it.
Okay, so please.
Yeah, so the question, like Dr. Ismail has highlighted, like greening, it's really the land reclamation, equal land reclamation, and regreen, that actually equal combating desertification or for the try to battling the land that being degraded because of human activities or climate change. But he also highlighted one of the key challenge is really the limited groundwater resources. And from your perspective, what are really the key challenge, taking like the scale of the land development that Egypt currently doing?
So actually, I totally agree with Dr. Ismail when he mentioned that we have a limited groundwater resources, and even I'd like to mention the groundwater resources in the desert area is non-renewable and fossil water. We cannot depend on that water for having a large green areas. While nowadays the country started to focus on the drainage reuse, and we have some mega project to turn the desert to green area, depending on treated drainage water. We have examples. We have El Mahsama, which is one of our mega projects where we have treated 1 million cubic meter per day and use this water to develop desert area in North Sinai. In addition to another project now under construction, and recently we will soon we will take actions to make this project on the ground, Bahr al-Bakar, which will add another 5 million cubic meter fully treated. This water was originally drainage water, either agriculture or sewage water. With a mega treatment plant, we will use those amount of water to transfer the desert area in Sinai to green one. We have also now we are studying and we are in the design stage for the new delta, which is in the Western Desert. Another 6 million cubic meter from drainage water will be treated in a central treatment plant, and this amount will be used to transfer the desert to a green area, in addition to small amount from the groundwater as a complementary for other purposes. As you know, when we have a new community to be developed for the agricultural purpose, we will need to have some cities, small communities. So the groundwater will be mainly for the community and for drinking. Then we can use complementary groundwater for agricultural purposes. If we turn to another area where we have a plan to cultivate about 1 million palm tree in the southern part of Egypt, this project also depends on rationalize the use of the surface water. We will use surface water in Toshka area, but we will focus on the crops that use less water, and we prefer to have palm trees. So a lot of measures taken by the country to reduce depending on groundwater, the fossil one. Also, we don't have a plenty of surface water. As you know, we have a limited amount, and it's fixed by 55.5 from the Nile and a little amount of rain. Also, I would like to highlight the plans of the country to expand the rain harvesting facilities. Till now, we have about 1,050 dams and lakes to harvest rainfall on remote areas, and we use this amount for the communities and also for some agriculture for on a smaller scales. We have plans to expand this technique in the northern part of Egypt, where we have a little amount of rainfall during winter. I guess those measures and those direction will formulate how we will transfer the desert to green and maintain our limited water resources. I'm ready for any more clarification, Dr. Amber. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iman. That's really a great insight about the different project that Egypt carry forward to transform desert into green or agriculture land. And that's really, it's a good segue for the following question, taking like as Ms. Camilla indicating the sustainability, Dr. Ismail indicated like the transforming the desert and make it attractive to the farmer. So with that, I would like to go to Dr. Biza, and taking your experience with gender and community, like making that attractive to the new workers to go and work in the new desert areas of project and also bring farmers there. What could be the challenge from your perspective, and how would we tackle them? Dr. Biza, please.
Thank you, Amgad. I believe you want me only to focus on not the regreening, but the greening aspect of it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think a lot has to do with the desertification itself before we go to the solution. When you talk about gender mainstreaming in these mega projects and you're using greening the desert as a solution, the question should be a solution for who? A solution at what cost? Are you targeting smallholder farmers? Are you targeting mega businesses, agribusinesses? Is it a parastatal company that's managing it? So who is the target? Again, starts the whole process of how do you engage communities? If you're targeting smallholder farmers who are already farmers, like for instance, taking the case of Egypt, if you're moving them from the Delta, there are certain agricultural practices that they are used to. So in the desert, as you're moving them, it's knowledge intensive, it's technology intensive in the sense that the issues of accessing water, the quality of the water, the type of crops they can use, the value addition, the type of markets, the access they have, and the markets that they can sell to. All of these things are very different. And so if you're taking gender as in the challenges that both men and women face, yes, there are differences. Women already have marginal knowledge, marginal abilities in terms of access to credit, access to inputs, and the same for youth and smallholder farmers in general. So when you're taking them into the desert, how do you equitably provide all of these things for them? How do you make it affordable? The initial investment cost for someone to move and work in the desert is very huge, right? I mean, you need to access groundwater, and that depends, the depth you can go depends on the amount of resources that you have. Depending on the salinity of the water, what are the crop choices that you have? And how do you use that to add value to it, to package it, to transport it? I mean, you would need cooler trucks in some cases to transport them, to package them, to store them. How do you target different markets? How far off is the location from the city, the main city that you are linked to, the communication services and others? So depending on who the target is, depending on whether you are trying to resettle communities as a whole or just targeting big businesses, I think the solution is different. So the way you mainstream gender, there is no one cookie cutter way of, if you do this, then this will happen kind of thing. It depending on what that intervention is solving, right? Is it just growing crops and increasing food security at a national level, and you're only targeting large businesses? Or if you're moving communities to resolve issues with population growth and land fragmentation, and you're trying to relocate people, it's different. And so I think the key message is it depends on the context, it depends on who's targeted and what your overall goal is. But it's important to keep this in mind, that men, women, youth, all of them have different capabilities, different needs, and those have to be taken into account if you want a sustainable management of the resources, sustainable livelihoods established in the new areas of settlement. I think I'll stop there and open up for questions. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Bida. That's really an inspiring to see, like, understanding the needs and the accessibility. With that, I would like to go back to Dr. Ismail, taking you've been working in academia and research, and you have educated many generation about desert. Taking the understanding of all the challenges that have been highlighted by Ms. Camilla and Biza and Dr. Iman and yourself, if we're looking at the future student, taking the assumption like those students will become like maybe the educated farmers for future, what they need to study or learn nowadays? What curriculum need to change? How we can change it?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I have another comment, and excuse me for that. Okay. Because if you look at the formal definition of the UNCCD, you will realize that 86 of the total area of Egypt is out of this convention, because 86 of the total area of Egypt is hyper. Okay. Then all what we can actually talk about is the only 14% of the total area of Egypt. And that's why I feel nervous. I'm sorry for that. When I follow agricultural projects to expand the agricultural land in Egypt in such areas, hyper arid, okay? And we have to be very careful because these areas rainfall is zero, and very fragile environments. And by the way, the oasis, Bahariya and the others, actually, they are located geographically in the hyper-arid area. Okay, it's just a comment very quick. And back to your question, because it's very important to, as I said before, to maintain the balance between the ambitions and the resources by assessment. Then the research points, if that's your question, I would propose to research to link sustainability and desertification, the impact of both. The other thing, actually, I would also make this statement, which may cause some, let us say, your surprise and some others. If we actually do applied research, I assure that we will be able to increase the agricultural productivity in Egypt by 50%. And don't surprise, because if we are able to eliminate the causes of desertification, I expect an increase 30% over the current productivity in the agricultural land in Egypt. 30% over the current productivity. I will not go actually in details about this, the desertification factors or causes. If we add the post-harvest and marketing losses, we have post-harvest and marketing losses about 20%. If you add both 30%, if you compare desertification, and 20% the losses, then you can increase the productivity of the agricultural land in Egypt by 50% without need for horizontal expansion. Also, I would propose a slight modification. I talked to you before about that. The formal definition of the desertification. I tried actually several times by the COP to modify this definition because the definition is focusing only on one element, which is land, while we have to focus on the ecosystem services as a whole. Then, if you allow me, I would propose to work on that definition by research, to be like that: ecosystem services degradation process in arid and semi-arid and dry subhumid areas induced by nature and human activities. The other point, actually, I propose to create a dynamic system model to monitor and analyze potential future state of desertification in Egypt. Yeah, that's, I don't like actually to take the whole time.
No, it's all right. Thank you, Dr. Ismail. We always learn from your insight and sometimes critical questions. But I think it's good you highlight that the definition or revisiting the definition. That could be really a nice part for the second part of the panel. but you also highlighted like the role of the applied research and research to tackling and improving productivity. I think that it's a very good segue for the following presentation. I will let Victoria introduce Dr. Hani Swalem. For sure, most of us know him, but I will let Victoria formally introduce him. And please, for all participants, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you don't want to forget your question, please put it in the chat, and then we'll take that during the Q&A. Back to you, Victoria.
Thank you very much, Amgad. Okay. Dr. Hani is at the moment the professor and managing director at the UNESCO Chair in Hydrological Changes and Water Resources Management at the Department of Engineering Hydrology at RWTH or RWTH Aachen, and director for the Center for Applied Research on the Environment and Sustainability CARES at American University here in Cairo. I hope that he was able to log in already. Let me just check. He's not with us yet, but he should join any second. He will be presenting a project that works in higher education capacity building for specifically the regreening the desert. And Heliopolis University is one of the partners there. But I'm also sure there are many, many more, and we would just like to share this project with you as an example.
If Dr. Hani still hasn't joined, I can refer one question to Ms. Camilla.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, okay. All right, Ms. Camilla, I would like to take that last. Can you hear me? Yes. Last point that being made by Professor Ismail, to really look at the definition of desertification and expand it to include the ecosystem service. Where do you see this? Or if you have any comments or insight on that, please.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if we should go into the discussion here. It's a big process in the UNCCD on our definitions, etc. But I mean, we look at land restoration from the ecosystem perspective, but also from the productive perspective. So it is, you know, healthy soils can produce, but they can also restore or provide ecosystem services through water retention, etc. So this is kind of the way we're looking at it. So yeah, I think we take a broad view on combating desertification and what that means. I saw a question in the chat. I don't know if you want me to refer to that now, or we wait until, please. Yeah. Now there was a question around the Great Green Wall and its challenges, and you know, how can we make sure we overcome them? And it was referred to the fact that only 5% has been completed of the ambition so far. We commissioned the first State of the Great Green Wall report last year, and in fact we're looking at a little bit the broader area of the Great Green Wall, so not just a strict area of between 100 millimeter and 400 millimeter of rainfall, but going beyond, and there we see that we have actually 18% restored, so 18 million hectares. And the reason why we are looking at it broader is in fact this need to not just look at forestry or agroforestry or agriculture, but really look at land restoration or combating the desertification in a holistic manner, looking at markets and infrastructure, etc. And we did get a boost, I would say, this year. $17 billion were announced at the One Planet Summit in January. We are now setting up a team, an accelerator team in the UNCCD, to make sure that that funding is tracked and reaches really the population on the ground in the Sahel. So, but I think that we need more than money. And again, this is something that perhaps can be useful for other countries as well. Not just political will, which I think we have in the Great Green Wall, but really the linkages between ministries, the sector ministries need to be engaged, not just the agriculture and the forestry, and the private sector is a key actor. We will not reach the sustainable development goals globally without the investments of the private sector. So yeah, just to add a bit while we're waiting for the next speaker. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Camilla. Is Dr. Hani joining us, Victoria? Or shall we go for another question?
So far, not that I can see. Let me just recheck. No, not yet. But I'm already trying to get in touch with them. Okay. For some reason, Hani, your name is shown as Sigurd.
Okay.
Which is a bit weird, but okay. Thank you that you're here. Then let's go.
It looks like Sigurd shared his link with Dr. Hani.
Hani, the floor is yours. We were so free to already introduce you while you were not there yet.
Let me switch to the microphone. So I assume you hear me now.
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I enjoyed the discussion that was going on before, and I'm not going to add to what was said or to repeat what was said regarding desertification and the relation to agriculture-related activities, but I just want to highlight two of our projects that are really dealing directly and indirectly with the issue of desertification. The main principle of these projects is to change the mindset of land reclamation projects. So we used to go to the desert and do a kind of land reclamation with a standard cropping pattern that we have been implementing over the years. And then we faced a lot of challenges. So what we're trying to do in these two projects is to learn from the past and plan for the future. Learning from the past, see what was done not in a very proper way in Egypt, at least in the Egyptian deserts, and how we can deal with that. So we're changing the mindset from the land reclamation to sustainable development of the desert. The first project we have has a title of Steering Migration Through Sustainable Development. And here we know that some of the small investors and also the small farmers who are trying to take land in the desert. In some areas, they start by having a couple of acres or fiddans, if you like, and then they invest whatever they have in this area. In many cases, they face challenges of water scarcity or scarcity of salinity of the soil or salinity of the groundwater in some cases. And we know examples that we can discuss there. So these people, they really migrate and start looking for another jobs, especially also from the Egyptian villages, like Fayoum villages, for example. Many of the small farmers and laborers are migrating legally or illegally to other countries because of relation between agricultural productivity. Either this deterioration of agricultural productivity is related to water or soil or land or other reason. There is a migration that's connected to agricultural activities. So what we're trying to do is to introduce a concept of sustainable development. And here the concept of sustainable development is not only about the technical aspects of agriculture, availability of water, availability of or soil management, proper soil management. It also thinks about the profitability, the income that comes to the farmer, and how the function, how the model of the farmer should be functioning well, which means that the prices or the investments of the inputs to this model, the prices of energy, cost of fertilizers, pesticides, and labors, etc., as input to the farmer models, and also the output, the end product that you were discussing before. This should function. This should make profit for the farmer at the end. But in addition to protecting the environment through soil management And we know in some areas we have soil salinity that's really reducing the productivity significantly, and how the farmer should deal with the environmental, economical, but also the social aspects. So with such a sustainable model, we hope that we will provide a better and functioning sustainable model for the farmer in the agriculture, either in the old land in the delta or in the new land in the desert. And this is also, as I said, which is connected to the migration. We're trying to work also with other stakeholders. So we work with the Ministry of Water Resources. We also collaborate with the Ministry of Migration to bring this issue to at a political level, because what we know now that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is going to affect the water resources in Egypt. And with each billion cubic meter that might be lost through the establishment of this dam, there will be thousands of farmers losing their jobs. So this is also a very tight and very strong relation between water scarcity and people migrating, looking for better opportunity. And migration, as I said before, could be legally or illegally. So these interrelationships we study. And what we do with that, we try to build the capacity of the next generations. So in these two projects, without going into details, I committed myself for 5 minutes. With this interrelationship, we try to develop new contents for graduate students. So we have partners from Heliopolis University, we have partner at Cairo University, American University in Cairo, Alexandria University, Aswan University, and from the European side, we have also Aachen University, the Agriculture University in Sweden. We have also Politecnico, we have Madrid, also University of Madrid. We have Nicosia from Greece. We have too many partners involved in these two projects. But the two projects, they have this common objective, is really to build the capacity of the people by developing professional degrees, Master of Science, undergraduate programs, in order to introduce the concept of sustainability as a cross-cutting concept, especially in the agriculture and rural development sectors. So we develop contents together, Europeans and the Egyptians. We try to inject concepts like integrating water and energy together. We try to put concepts like sustainable agriculture, precision agriculture, agriculture intensification, as Professor Digilil said in the previous intervention, and how this intensification can be done in a sustainable way. Because sometimes agriculture intensification means for some people just adding fertilizers to increase the productivity. That might happen on the short term, but on the long term, you have significant depletion in the productivity because of the impact on the soil. So what we try to provide the people that intensification should also be sustainable. So if you are working vertically and trying to increase the productivity per square meter, but also think on the horizontal side and how you expand the agriculture area and fight desertification in a more sustainable manner. We also think and teach the people the productivity not only per square meter or hectare or acre, but also productivity per energy unit or kilowatt hour, or productivity per cubic meter of water, because these are the concepts that are missing in our curricula. People always think about land reclamation, how many acres. Honestly, how many acres, it's not the only issue. Of course, this is something related to desertification and fighting desertification, and it has to be considered. But also, what is the productivity per unit water, and what's the productivity per unit land? What's the productivity per unit energy? All these aspects, they need to be taught in a multidisciplinary approach. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Of course, the challenge is to bring a professor from the water background together with an energy professor to develop curricula together. to bring them from different universities to collaborate and share labs, share facilities. So we have been establishing labs in all the universities that I mentioned. We are also establishing the so-called DSO, D-Village. D-Village is the title of the project, surface office. So this surface office should be available for farmers, investors, students who are interested to enter to the university to get some experience, to gain knowledge, to get advice, consultancy. And most of the programs we offer so far are for free. I can also see people are very interested in topics such as entrepreneurship in agriculture sector or startup business in the agriculture. We have been publishing and announcing some events in the previous weeks, and the interest is huge on such topics. So these D-Village surface office are open for the community and opening the door of the university and bridging the gap between science and scientific and academia and the practice. So people can go to the university, ask for consultancy, bring a soil and discuss it with professors. So this is a very interesting idea that I'm really very optimistic about its impact, in addition to the programs I mentioned. So Cairo University is offering a professional degree. The American University is also offering Masters of Science in Sustainable Development, and very soon they will be offering with Nexus Technologies professional diploma. The Heliopolis University is offering also several undergraduate programs in water engineering, energy engineering, organic agriculture, which normally private universities do not offer programs related to agriculture because they are not really profitable. But Heliopolis University is more committed to the sustainability and the sustainable development in Egypt. The same is happening with Aswan University. Alexandria University is offering also degree, and all our partners are developing and continue to develop programs. I don't want to take more than what we plan to do, but I'm available a couple of minutes for any question. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Hani. If there is any question, because Hani will have to leave us soon, I would say one or two we can answer now quickly.
If I can, I started the panel too and give a question to Dr. Hani before he leaves us. I think that would be great. Can we do that, Victoria?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Go for it.
All right. Thank you, Victoria. So thank you, Dr. Hani, for that insight and intervention about those two projects and highlighting really the improving the income for farmers and also sustainability and really developing that new content for graduate students. Can you give us a comment like how can like a research organization and higher education contribute to like a successful regreening the desert? As like we have seen number of projects in Egypt and of course in the region as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question that I have been asking myself over the previous years. We have been implementing, at least with my university in Germany, implementing projects in Egypt over the last 20 years. There was always one project at least running, sometimes 2 and 3. After a certain period of time, and then I asked myself, what's really the most significant impact that universities and research institutes can do to help the agriculture community and farmers in Egypt? And these projects have been developed and changed over time. So they're not copy-paste, they're not the same, based on the experience we gained. One of the very interesting ideas that also was always supported by Professor Abu Aish, that he was also repeating the word that university has to open the door to the community. So university is not meant only for students. University is meant to be helping the surrounding community. So if each university can open the door in one way or the other, opening the door not in the direct sense, but opening the door like what I mentioned before, D-Village surface office, and this surface office is devoted for helping the community members not only the students. So farmers can go to the university, take soil sample, discuss with the professor and say, I have a problem here. For example, now with the University in Cairo and Heliopolis University, we are trying to help El Moghra community. El Moghra, as you know, it's a new area, new agriculture area, traditional land reclamation project that's facing groundwater salinity. Groundwater salinity that might work with you the first 2 seasons, and then the crop productivity start depleting, and there is a huge salt accumulation in the root zone. So what we're trying to do is to develop scientific approach of how these farmers can deal with such salinity. How can they live with it? How can we manage their soil salinity, and how we can support them to survive and sustain? So that's one of the ideas that I would recommend for research centers or universities, is really to open the door and go beyond teaching and lab research. Consider these projects as a life lab. I tell my team, if we are really, our research is not impacting community and not able to solve the problems like El Moghra is too complicated, but problems similar to El Moghra, then we are doing something wrong. So what's the benefit and the impact of our research if we are not going and trying at least to solve such problems? So research that's not problem-oriented and solution-oriented, then we don't need it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hani. That's really a great way to look at it, like really opening the door, allowing universities or encourage universities and research centers that really serving the community around them and open the door for them. And that really align with what we have heard from the agriculture minister for government of Egypt when he gave last week the speech at UN, where he really highlighted or promoting a proactive approach that's really to reducing the risk and impact of desertification and land degradation and drought, to really commit to adapting best practice for land recovery based on scientific evidence and traditional knowledge, and to be able to merge those two, the scientific evidence and traditional knowledge, that academic and research institutes really need to open their door and host that dialogue and serve the community. So that's really a great point. And I would like to use this and go to our panel member with a simple question really to start that second part of our panel discussion, where we really need to discuss solutions to overcome a challenge that being highlighted in the first part of the panel, but also looking at the opportunities and prospects for regreening the desert. So my question to the panel member, and I will go for like 2 minutes comment from each one so we can manage the time. What has been really recognized as the most efficient and sustainable way to do the regreening, or even if you wanted to comment on greening, that should be fine. Can I start with Dr. Iman? Give us the Egyptian perspective and what has been recognized as the most efficient and sustainable way to do it.
Actually,
Dr. Iman, please.
Actually, I believe from my perspective to think how we can face the challenges of regreening or greening, we may depend on new techniques and have new technologies. For example, we heard about cultivating using saline water, and we would like to have more research in this area, how we will depend on saline water and how mixing techniques to use the huge amount of saline water either in the groundwater aquifer, or also use the cost of desalination or mixing this saline water with fresh water. This branch, I guess, will help a lot in facing the challenges of limited water resources that we are facing in Egypt. Sure, to have green areas, we need the water. So how we will solve this, beside depending on non-conventional water resources and reusing the drainage water and also on rationalize the use of the groundwater. We would like to think out of the box and see different experience around the world, how we will start to use saline water and also to cultivate some crops who can be able and saline tolerant, and also some crops to be with high productivity and use small amount of water. This type of new way of facing that challenge, I guess, will be more essential for us.
Thank you, Dr. Iman, by highlighting that and really rationalizing the use of the resources, and that coming strongly from the government of Egypt. And we have seen this in all the current or big mega projects. I would like to go with Ms. Camilla to give us the international perspective as a multinational project. Like, what has been really recognized in the multinational project?
Thank you very much. And yeah, I agree with many of the solutions, the technical solution that has been proposed. And again, it does depend on the area or in the particular environment and the particular challenges in terms of which solutions are the best. But maybe to raise it a little bit at the higher level in terms of solutions, I think many have been mentioned here. I think in terms of attracting financing, the whole interconnectedness is very important. I think it was mentioned by one of the previous speakers of linking water and energy and climate, combating climate change or mitigating and adapting to climate change with agriculture, sustainable agriculture practices is very important, because you do then have the opportunities to really attract different sources of financing. I'm responding to this because there was a question in the chat about financing opportunities, and we have seen that often the question goes to us. You know, there is not enough financing available for combating desertification and for restoring degraded lands. But if you do look at making interlinkages between climate mitigation and adaptation and land restoration, you will see that a lot of financing doors opens. I give you one example. I'm working with the Green Climate Fund on the first big multi-country umbrella program for the Great Green Wall. It's the ambition is $1 billion, and it's really the first time that the Green Climate Fund is tackling land restoration or combating desertification, because we are developing approaches for both climate mitigation and adaptation. And I think this is one solution to really look at land restoration holistically. Also, just to give you another example, the Land Degradation Neutrality Fund was established a couple of years ago, facilitated by the UNCCD. It has now $200 million that they are ready to invest in combating desertification or in land degradation neutrality activities, which is many of those we're talking about here. So this is really, of course, a profitable types of investments, but we do see a growing interest of investment and financing into land restoration. And yeah, again, I really like the comment about education and curricula, and I think it has to start already with the young people, making them understand the whole holistic approach to really restoring our degraded lands, or as you're talking about here, greening the desert and making agriculture production in desert areas. I think this is important to understand already at that level of, you need to talk to the energy people, the energy ministry, the water ministry, the agriculture, to really build those holistic approaches. I stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Camilla. That's really great inputs, and I think it's aligned even with like with the government of Egypt. Like if we look at the speech from the Minister of Agriculture at UN combating desertification and drought, he was really highlighting also like societies need integrated long-term strategies, that involve increasing land productivity, rehabilitation, and rationalizing the use and sustainable management of water resources, including access to finance, to be able to allow farmers really to adapt those new technologies. So with that, I would like to go to Dr. Ismail, and to tell us from your perspective, what are recognized really as a most efficient and sustainable way to do regreening? Dr. Ismail, are you still with us?
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. I have also some comments, but after I finish, actually, or I give you my answer. Your question about what's recognizable, okay? Please repeat
yes,
the question
as a most
again.
Efficient and sustainable way. Yeah, what is the most
I can make it very short.
As a,
I can,
yeah, as an efficient.
Yeah,
sure.
I can make it very short, okay? We can make it like that slogan. Green
okay.
in a sustainable manner to avoid regreening. You understand it? If we actually, if we reclaim the new lands in a sustainable manner and based on science, and we will not be in a position after years. It's like Professor my memory is bad. Hannes Willem said, okay, because as he said, I agree actually that we have some projects after just a few years degraded because it's not based actually on proper assessment. And also I actually agree him in that we have universities, okay, in different ecosystems. But unfortunately, most of these universities, they are not working or focusing on the ecosystem where they are. I see it's not a matter of just to open doors. But as you know, and we need actually that each university in the ecosystem, they would be more specialized in salinity. Those in the north coastal area, in the western coastal area, to work on rain-fed agriculture. Okay. While those in southern Egypt, they should work on the biosaline agriculture and so on. If we have such integrated system, I think that's the farmers would be beneficiary from their experience. Otherwise, actually, Kudel model. It's like the system now, everyone is working in other area. We should actually work on the comparative advantage of each area. Each area, Sinai has its comparative advantages, okay? While the north coastal area, it has another actually comparative advantages. We have to maximize actually these advantages to stimulate the Bedouins and the settlers, okay, to not to migrate, as Dr. Swillam said. Migration, it is one of the negative consequences of desertification. Also, insecurity, food insecurity, it is also consequences. But my concern actually is migration, and nobody can claim, okay, that the people who settled in desert, they are happy. Why? Because of policies. By the way, you talked about finance. I think before finance, ahead of finance, I have to cry. Ahead of finance, policies, okay? Incompatibility between policies and also the dreams. To go to desert, you have to have incentives. Unfortunately, by us in Egypt, most of the policies based on penalties, not on incentives. In the globe, there are incentives actually to stimulate the people to go to green or to regreen. But unfortunately, as you know, I think now there is a what they call it, because agriculture has become a business to sustain the globe. It's not only for food production. Now I think you know that there is what they call it ecosystem service payments. Deserve all the farmers in the desert or in the valley. They deserve payment in return that they maintaining they are providing oxygen to us. They are actually sinking CO2, and that's why they deserve actually incentives. I'm sorry for being long in that.
No. Thanks, Dr. Ismail. I think it's a good point you highlighted, like the incentive policy and expand the finance to like end user finance, which is it's really important to encourage people to move to those new land or new areas or deserts. But we have heard like technologies being raised and flagged many times as part of the solutions. Is Dr. Chandra with us?
Yeah.
Yes. So Chandra, could you please like telling us like how can the frontier technologies like GeoAgro, remote sensing techniques can really help us to target the interventions and define the priority and even allocate the finance somehow?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Amgad and the colleagues. They brought up the several very interesting solutions and problems. And I clearly see that technology matured enough to make use of nowadays to anywhere. And the first things I come to this one, like when I talk to the young youth and the crowd, they're thinking about the ecosystem services, ecology, and pandemics. It's very clear that there's a loss of the traditional knowledge. And this is one thing we need to bring the awareness among the masses to reintroduce the lost track of the traditional knowledge and wisdom of consumptions, which in fact sustained thousands of years without triggering the man-made desertification degradation. So this is where I see the ICT-enabled citizen science because of the access to the mobile technologies and digital technologies everywhere, most of the part of the world. And this is where they play the important role. And this is I see that the connecting the traditional knowledge to the artificial intelligence. So how best you can play that role. The other thing would be the very interesting to do like the scaling domains. And geolocalization is one of the effective to identifying a present and a future state of the land degradation specifications, as Dr. Ismail mentioned, and identifying low-hanging areas, like identifying like where we can harvest the rainwater and where are the hierarchical level of restorations by step, identifying the key areas in terms of the suitability of the species to the given location, and restoring the soil organic matter by in fact bring the better the carbon sequestration mechanisms and site specific matching of the factors, especially like when you roam around the desert area. For example, I went to the this Baharia desert and identify several the edible species. We treated them as weeds, And can you bring that back to the systems? And the other thing very, very important is that we have to be rethink about the generic farming systems and pastoralisms to a multi-purpose production, such as the agroecosystems, agro-silvopastoral systems, and calorie-centric to the nutrition-centric. And this is where we need to link the multi-purpose landscape. So that's the other one. And this is where we see the frontier technologies matured enough in terms of the readily available satellite data and almost like a real-time basis on the every day to understand the landscape dynamics. So this is where the precision agriculture we need to make simple, affordable, accessible to the everyone. That helps to build a carbon sink farming. So that this is one is lacking in the most of the dry areas, and where the agronomy, agroecology that play the very important role. So that when it comes to the ecosystem services, I often see that people just talk about the ecosystem services without looking at the structure and functions. In order to build the structure and functions and the rebuilding the soil, that's what the Helmi is and other colleagues mentioned in the previous speech. And this organic growth is very essential, and how the technology can build us to the rebuild the soil by reducing the input, the salt input, energy consumption, carbon sequestrations, and very clearly that one a carbon credit. So that why should people invest or adopt a sustainable farming without incentivizing the carbon, the sequester? I see that we do a lot of this conservation agriculture practices in the last 30 years promoted by the ICARDA across the dry areas. Often people not ready to use that one because we never incentivize that one amount of the carbon sequester. Now, a technology is, we are working on that to map the farm-specific drivers in terms of agronomy, also carbon sequestrations. If the farmers adopt a crop rotations and crop residual management, we can able to track that amount of the carbon the sequestered at farm level I'm talking about. And this is where the incentive is very driven. So like that way, we have the technology innovations works in the number of ways, connecting the people, understanding the landscape, and incentivizing the land management practices, sustainable land management practices, and also linking to the youth and the gender, especially the women. When I look into the compare with my generations or my previous generations and previous generations, and women is always more centric to the ecology centric. They're always looking into the restoring the landscape and nutrition. I think this is very need to be given the high emphasis when you rebuild a farming system dynamics. I think this is what I would like to say, that a technology matured enough, we need a collective actions and connecting the dots between the local intelligence, demand supply gaps, and then link into the ecology to the economy. Then only can sustainable the options possible. That's where we should move towards the what's called a land degradation neutrality, accounting all these the innovations in practices. Yeah, thank you. So I think that's what the time is limited. That's what I can say.
No, it's a perfect time. It's a perfect time. Yeah. Thanks, Chandra. And it's a really good point you have made, about the technologies and how it can really connect people and helping us designing the multi-purpose landscape. And I like also bring the gender aspect into the technology design or the technologies solutions. I would like to take that and go to Dr. Biza, migration or reallocating people into new land, technologies as a solution. Gender is really a key part of that. Why is the gender really important in developing those strategies or solutions to combat desertification? Dr. Biza, please. And how we can make it better as well. How we can make gender mainstreaming better in our strategy design or solutions design. Dr. Biza, are you still with us?
Sorry, I had muted myself, sorry.
That's all right.
Well, it's a very good question. I think the starting point, again, I want to take you a step back and look at what are the causes of desertification. I mean, when we say we're combating it, the causes in different countries is different, right? For some, it's deforestation. For some, it's overexploitation of the land. It's overgrazing, depending on what location, which context you're talking about. And so before we get into combating, understanding the cause, the main causes, and who's causing it, what's causing it, I think that's very important. The contextual understanding of the different roles of the communities, of the system itself. Sometimes it's institutional, right? It's the institutional framework. Overexploitation of groundwater could be not necessarily because it's not regulated well. It could be an issue of overgrazing where destocking is not monitored and regulated properly. So part of it could be policy, part of it could be the environment itself not being sufficient and not compatible with the population that it's trying to support, the incompatibility that was talked about earlier. And so depending on what the issue is, the way you address it or combat this desertification is different. And then when you bring it down to the household level, to the community level, I think understanding that will help you define the different areas where you can build the resilience, right? It's not just addressing, combating now, you are regreening and you're out of it. It's not just one project, but it's building the resilience of the whole system, building the socio-ecological system, the resilience of the system, meaning building the community, the social aspect, as well as the natural aspect. And by building the resilience, you will be able to strengthen it and to be able to absorb shocks, because it will keep happening, right? But like drought will be increasing, temperature is expected to be increasing with climate change. So as you target that long-term shocks, expected shocks, then you'll be working on resilience. Again, now going down to the community level, we have learned through, for instance, ICARDA interventions that community-based, community engaging projects work better because they are part of the solution, they are part of understanding the causes, and they're part of the solutions. We had, for instance, some projects in Jordan where we started not only on regreening based on larger watershed managements where communities are involved in planting shrubs and managing the shrubs and so forth, but also worked with the women in terms of efficiency of the livestock management, the processing, the value addition and marketing. And we were also working with younger students, right? We were we were involved in the curriculum, introducing the problems of desertification and how they should manage their areas through dramas and things that they were able to do. So it's more a holistic approach. It's not just regreening and having more trees in place or having more plants grown in the specific area, but it's a more comprehensive view. And that's where gender comes in. As you broaden the agenda, as you broaden the areas of intervention, then you have different opportunities to make sure that gender is mainstreamed. All members of the community basically are accounted for. That's what gender means. It's not just, I know it's misunderstood and usually contextualized as the issues of women, but gender is not just about women. It's about men, it's about women, it's introducing projects that are culturally, religiously sensitive to the community and equitable for all the community to benefit and for all the household to benefit from it. And so like for one of the challenges with desertification, for instance, is the migration that has been mentioned a few times earlier. And with that comes the feminization of agriculture, which is a huge topic within the gender study, where women are left with the farms and the men have to go abroad or to the next governorate or whatever to generate the income. But then in that case, the women have the added burden of taking care of the farm and the house and the household and the family and the elders, but they're not given the authority or the institutional engagement in terms of decision making and so forth that kind of puts them at a disadvantage. So there are many ways of considering gender in it. So both institutionally, work-wise, access to credit, access to land, access to water, access to information. For instance, in most cases, extension in most developing countries, it's weak, but then extension to women, extension services to women is even worse. And so in areas where the area is isolated, where desertification is a big problem, or new areas of desert that you are trying to green, sources of information to technologies is even scarcer for women. And so thinking of equitable ways to engage and make the livelihood workable for the whole community, workable for the whole household, should be targeted, but it all is context specific. So it should start with understanding the causes and then seeking solutions that works for all. I hope, I know I've taken a lot of time, sorry, but I wanted to ensure that you have the comprehensive understanding of it. Thank you, Amgad.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you, Bida. I think it's, you're highlighting that holistic approach, and also gender, it's go really beyond men and women. It's really about the community and culture and religion and all the other sensitivity that need to be considered. So with that, I would like to go to Ms. Camilla again, and taking like the GGW project, which is an international project. How do you see that project contribute or benefit the process of combating the desertification, and what type of or what lesson learned really can really serve or inform the national projects?
Thank you very much. And I think a lot has been said, but maybe try to pick on some of what the other speakers have said as well. I think one word that has come through is holistic. So the need for holistic approaches, whether we talk about technology, sectors, or gender. And I think Dr. Chandra said connect the dots. So I would say what we have, learned of importance in the Great Green Wall Initiative, but also generally in the UNCCD, in what works in combating desertification, is really connecting the dots between various development challenges and various sectors. So tackling climate change, building biodiversity, working against forced migration and conflict, all needs to be tackled in an integrated manner. Secondly, perhaps the importance, and this was also mentioned, I think, by Dr. El-Mahdi, the need to connect the communities and really the practices that are known already by farmers and communities with the national and regional and international level, so that we do get informed bottom-up information as well on what works. Perhaps also the issue of blended finance solutions to really look at how we can better build projects where public financing can provide this sort of soft financing, or de-risking financing around capacity building and technical expertise to really de-risk investment for private companies, and really look at linking environmental and social and economic benefits together. This is what the private sector called triple bottom line investments. And then perhaps also have been mentioned, but really use both traditional knowledge and solutions and technologies together with and couple that with new innovative approaches. So yeah, maybe that's my way of summing up our lessons learned in what works. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. Great lesson learned, and it's a great summary. Thanks, Camilla, for that. Before I go for the last question for Dr. Iman, I would like to just get a quick comment from Dr. Ismail. Taking those key points that have been highlighted by Camilla, like the holistic approach, connecting the dots, inform from bottom up, the lending finance, bring in the traditional knowledge. Dr. Ismail, where do you see our research is heading? Are we really aligned with those, or we are moving into different directions? A quick comments, please, Dr. Ismail, from your side. You are on mute, Dr. Ismail. You need to mute yourself.
Yes, okay,
Yep.
very quick. Actually, we have to make use of the traditional knowledges, and I think because they sustained over years and years and years and years, and that's why we have to develop such knowledges. And I think in Desert Research Center, we benefit very much from this cooperation with the local communities. And we developed actually some of these knowledges, in particular in propagation, and also collecting seeds from the plant genetic resources in the desert, and the usage also of some of these medicinal plants. That's actually a very short answer to your question.
Thank you, Dr. Ismail. And my last question go to Dr. Iman. Taking again the perspective of the countries and the existing policies, how would we ensure like all the current activities or big projects that tackling the desert are sustainable and not harming the natural resources from the Ministry of Water Resources perspective?
Actually, let me highlight that the coordination mechanism, which is now undertaken among different authorities and ministries inside the country. So we have a national and high-level coordination committee between the two ministries, Water Resources and Ministry of Agriculture, where every project, either in agriculture or in irrigation, is on a high-level coordination and discussion to assure all measures to have the sustainability for the new project proposed by Ministry of Agriculture. So we have coordination mechanism, not only with Ministry of Agriculture, also let me highlight the coordination between Ministry of Housing and a lot of ministries involved in the new project, just to assure the sustainable arrangement for any new community, either in agriculture side or in urban side. So the coordination is very important for sustainable manner. In previous decades, we see that each ministry worked in bilateral without any coordination, which make a lot of problem. Now we have intergovernmental committees meet maybe on monthly basis to discuss all the arrangement of the measure taken by the government. Also, we have good linkage with Ministry of Higher Education and Research, because we would like to assure that the new plans for the research in Egypt will serve the National Water Resource Plan. As you know, Dr. Amgad, we have the National Water Resource Plan, which already developed by coordination among 9 ministries. So to assure the sustainability for any measures or any project, we have a coordination and a steering committee. Sometimes the committee is headed by the Prime Minister to assure the harmony of the activities, like the New Delta. The committee of New Delta project is headed by the Prime Minister to assure all the coordination and to assure that the sustainability from all aspects.
Thanks, Dr. Iman. It's a really great, again, answer for the question, really, like the coordination between all the government bodies and ministries or responsible ministries, and also developing the National Water Resource Plan that as a collective work as well by 9 ministries. I think that's a great way to ensure that coordination is happening and sustainability is taking a shape. Thank you, Dr. Iman. And before I hand it back to Victoria for Q&A and taking the rest of the event, I would like to present my deep thanks for every panel speaker, and for your inputs and insight during the panel discussion, and I can see it has brought many questions in the chat. So I will leave that hard job to Victoria to select few questions, considering the time before we go to Dr. Hammo. Thank you again, every panel member, for your input and time and contribution. Thank you. Back to you, Victoria. Have we lost Victoria?
It seems that Victoria has a interline issue. Maybe we can ask that some people from the audience to ask directly a question, and we go quickly also through the chat. But if somebody wants to raise their hand or just unmute themselves.
Hello, can you hear me?
All right, so yes, Victoria.
Yes, sorry, I had a tiny issue with the connection.
That's all right.
Can you just repeat what you said?
Victoria, yes, now we are at the QA, so I concern about the time, so I will leave that hard job for you to select one or two questions, and then we can go to the closing remark with Dr. Hammo.
Yes, we can do that. I just need to follow up with the chat for 1 second. Was there any question that highlighted or that caught your eye directly?
Maybe if we can get a comment from Richard Beacock.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Richard Pocock, if you would like to say something, please do so.
Well, about 5 minutes ago, he apologized that he has to leave now, and he pointed out that he is a long way away from the Sahara, but he is looking at Australia and how many experiences were made there, and how many mistakes were made from which we must learn. First time is to make mistakes, second time is foolish, but that definitely means we have to at least try the first time. That was his comment. I can see that Dr. Bestoun Kadir has raised his hand. Maybe he wants to ask a question.
Yeah, sorry. Just I have hello everyone. Just I have an input for this webinar, and I think we have to, for the next step relevant to the desertification, and because of without considering the public health implication, I think it's mean we didn't cover the whole package because of the impact of the public health implication route to make people more vulnerable, and also such as we have so many endemic or epidemic diseases in Egypt. Even I'm from Iraq. In Iraq, we have so many already, such as skin diseases, malnutrition, and because of the complication of public health issues is not less than the food security, because of all subject aspects is correlated. Should, as you mentioned it more than 3 times, I think the response should be integrated, like integrated programming and health, and also gender, also like livelihood. For future, consider the public health issues. Thank you so much. That's all my comment for you.
Yes, thank you. I'm reading a little bit more from the chat, and there's a nice discussion going on about a list of plants which is being established on a website for saline conditions and in desert. I just plug it here. I don't know it, but some people have commented that it's good. It's livinglandscape.net. Certainly worth checking out. Salt tolerant up to 20 decibels per millimeter. That's quite good. Now, I can also see that Salah Ali has a question, maybe him, and then Dr. Krishna Devotka.
Thank you very much, Zigwart. I would like to first thank you all for this really interesting presentations. It was very useful and very informative. But I have a question regarding what I have here. It was mostly on land reclamation and ecosystem restoration, but I was wondering about land restoration. I know that in Egypt there are issues with urbanization and the settlements on the old lands of the Nile. So I was wondering if Dr. Iman can tell a little bit how the government is like their kind of policy to, you know, to stop that or to move forward with in line with land reclamation, that we also try to maintain our old land that we already have to stop the urbanization and things like that, because it's very important, this land restoration aspect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, Dr. Krishna Devkota. Sorry about my pronunciation.
It's okay. Hi, hello everybody. I'm Krishna Devkota. I'm speaking from Lyon region, southern part of Morocco, and I am assistant professor in Muhammad VI University here. Actually, I'm working in desert, exact Sahara desert. And here we have all this problem as we discussed, salinity, drought, everything. For us, what I am learning is Sahara is much more extreme. We have very high salinity, soil salinity, groundwater salinity. Of course, sea is very near to here, more than 35 decisiemens, and no rainfall, almost less than 50 millimeter per year. Then we are really looking for more for tree species, maybe which might be more sustainable in my understanding, because they can grow the crop. Growing crop means demanding water. Tree also demands, but if we have some sort of high salinity tolerant tree species in the similar kind of area, in my understanding, that is much more important and which might provide more ecosystem services, many benefits as we discussed. And as of now, we have only few halophytes in this kind of environments. I really like to know this kind of good plant species which can be benefited in cultivated in such a climate condition. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I think Victoria has line issues, internet line issues, so we're winging this a little bit. And if anybody else has one more final question or one more final comment, the chat is very full. We will try to answer a lot of the questions which are raised in there. I don't think we can go into all of that. From the live audience, one more chance to have a comment or a question. And if that's not the case, then I would think we are handing over to the closing comments. Right.
I think one second. I think there's one more hand raised, but I'm not sure if it's just my computer showing me or. Dr. Bastoun Kadir, you're raising your hand. Do you have another question or comment?
Yes, just I have a question. I am from Kurdistan of Iraq, and also, you know, the Iraq right now faces double shock for like drought. First, the rivers limited from the Turkey and Iran, and also the second rainfall is decreased more than half compared to the last years, and also influenced all productivity related to the environment and agriculture. Just if you have any idea for solving such a problem, because of internally and externally the water quantity and quality became decreased. Kindly, if you have any such a solution for that case, about sharing any documents, many thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And now, Victoria, can you hear us? Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm having some difficulties with the hearing. Sorry, my connection keeps interrupting.
Right. Do you want to moderate now for the closing comments? Can you hear that? I think
yes, I can hear that. We already introduced Dr. Hamo at the very beginning with all the details, but I would like to welcome him once again, and looking very much forward to his closing remarks. And Dr. Hamo, if you're here with us, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Very good. The floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for putting on this very interesting event as a celebration of the Desertification and Drought Day that is held this year under the credo restoring the degraded land in as a way to sustain our lives and ecosystem. So the restoration of land and the recovery, and how can we build back better with healthy lands. Today's agenda was actually challenging. A lot of interesting presentations by distinguished guests and panelists. And also a comprehensive set of questions that is challenging me actually on how to put together this in a kind of synthetic way, focusing on the key messages. The beauty of today's also is the stand from which the distinguished panelists were speaking. We heard from academia, from policymakers, from development agents, from research, from global research, Ricardo and Amy and CG as representatives of the CGR system. We heard from experts on technologies, on gender, and the focus was on what is our challenge, what are the key challenges to combat desertification in the Arab region, with a focus on Egypt. Of course, we heard from regional projects, but the focus was mainly on Egypt. And there was a key starting point, that is the definition of desertification, that is focusing mainly on land degradation. And the key challenges were actually summed up by different authors. I will just mention a few. One is the ecological challenges. When you are in a an ecosystem or an agroecological zone with scarcity, then this is something that is going beyond human intervention. Yet a few anthropic reasons are mainly the land use for different purposes. And urbanization is one of the key challenges in the region. Cities are growing and growing fast, and they are actually making the agricultural land shrinking and shrinking quickly. Non-sustainable use of water resources, particularly groundwater in the region, is one of the key challenges that is accelerating and exacerbating land degradation and the progress of desertification in the region. Issues related to the baseline record for monitoring and follow-up. I will mention also the key elements that is related to awareness of different categories, farmers, policy makers, young students and engineers. So issues also of to what extent solutions could be considered in given the challenges that I have mentioned. Some of them are actually policy solutions, some are institutional finance, some are finance mechanisms and blending finance mechanisms to regreen and green the deserts. And I did like very much what Dr. Ismail said if he will sum up the definition of regreening and greening.
Dr. Hammer, your connection got lost.
I am back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Right. Yeah. Part of the analysis also went into what Dr. Hani has presented in terms of projects implemented to contribute to land degradation in Egypt by introducing new practices, new irrigation techniques, new crops, and new cropping systems. And he did mention something that is quite interesting to stress in these concluding points is the mindset. And I think this is a point that we need to stress in our concluding points. Also, the link between the intention of the small farmers that are moving from Delta to the new lands, for instance, and the incentives that are given to them in terms of access to market, access to energy, and access to finance, that should be profitable enough to attract and maintain the new migrants. And also his call for integrated models that look across sectors, that look across actors, and look into holistic and integrated approaches. And this very point was also stressed by Camilla in her two statements, and the need for coherence, the need for consistency in investments, and also the need in innovation in finance mechanisms. And I think this point has also been stressed by Dr. Ismail and by Bizai, the blending of finance, innovation in finance, and access to finance for both men and women. And on this, I would like to stress a set of points that were nicely presented by Bizai, by starting by challenging the audience on the solutions we are discussing, solutions for whom, and by whom, at what cost, and who pays for greening and regreening. And she also stressed that the land degradation mitigation and the combating desertification goes through knowledge intensive experience and processes, and also it's a It can be a technology intensive approach, and it depends on the context. So solutions in the Delta are different from those in the valley, and in Egypt and Jordan are not similar. So looking into context-specific solutions and also disaggregating the needs and the assets for men and women in a more accurate definition of gender. It's not only men and women. It's also benefits of the households and the sustainability of the livelihoods of the households. So issues to access land, water, finance are skewed between men and women. Needs by men and women in terms of needs, solutions, by considering experience from different projects in Egypt. Dr. Iman has mentioned that groundwater management is one, but part of the solution would be improving the drainage wastewater reuse. She gave a couple of examples of projects that are ongoing.
Yeah, it seems it's an internet connection as well.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you again.
Sorry, I'm back again. I was just referring to the two examples that Dr. Iban Said has mentioned in the efforts of Egypt to make reuse of drainage water as part of the solution, or also address a couple of points on the role of technologies and mature technologies, as mentioned by Dr. Chandra, how they can help to reduce to control combat desertification by the mature technologies could help in geolocalization, in mapping the agroecological specificities and features, and in localizing the pertinent sites for water harvesting, for the existing species, and for the soil organic matter for CO2 sequestration. And all these elements are accessible through technologies that can be affordable and accessible for multi-purpose land and also for carbon sink farming. Also, a point that was highlighted by different distinguished panelists today is the relevance of ecosystem services as part of the solution, and considering the ecosystem services to rebuild for CO2 sequestration and to ensure endemic growth. Incentives for sustainable land management, part of the solution is investing in empowering women because they are better at practice. And it's also a key element to stress that connecting ecology and economy, speakers towards the land degradation neutrality. And I think that nice summary was presented at the end by Camilla, in that restoring degraded land in our region goes through connecting topics and themes: climate change, migration, conflict prevention, It goes also through integrating disciplines and specialties, but also integrating sectors, integrating actors, communities, practitioners, extensionists, policymakers. It goes through blending finance and de-risking finance and de-risking investments and linking the socio-ecological context to conditions, proper conditions for investment. And all this should consider the local knowledge in agriculture in arid and semi-arid regions as a way to prevent progress of the desertification through land reclamation. So again, at the end, Dr. Iman has mentioned the relevance and the importance of coordination mechanisms between different ministerial departments, not only in planning and policies, but also in programming projects that are taking into considerations different sectors' requirements and priorities towards sustainability for each and every project. 3 points before I hand over to you, Victoria. Today's celebration has shown how much the challenge in restoring degraded land in the Arab region is big, and it requires coordination and cooperation between disciplines, between different sectors, between different actors, local and national and even international. It also requires institutional arrangements to coordinate the interventions of the different departments. It also requires more investment in research for combating desertification and also some harmony in research. And I did like very much what Dr. Ismail mentioned in terms of making the universities solving their regional and agroecological problems. And a region that is suffering salinity, the research agenda should be around salinity. If it is groundwater management, then it should be the top research priority. So the role of research for development should be refocused in terms of priorities, but also research needs the necessary support and funding from national government and from the international donors. Youth, women, those are not only major groups, they are key actors and key stakeholders in the solution to protect land, conserve land, and make land sustainable. They have different needs in terms of capacities, in terms of access to assets, and they need to be considered in planning an integrated policy for land conservation and sustainability to achieve a proper plan and strategy to combat desertification. Again, I hope I have covered everything. There are a lot of other points that I should unfortunately oversee for the sake of time. Again, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you, Dr.
Hello? Hello, I am back.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Victoria, can you hear me?
So yes, finally, I can hear you.
I think if we think of the way forward, I think there is a need for more networking activities between universities working on the issue of land conservation to combat desertification. We need to document the different experiences, particularly the small projects that are happening. I'm thinking of Egypt. There is a huge number of small projects that are contributing significantly to combat desertification through land recovery and land restoration. They need to be documented and they need to be upscaled. Because projects are projects, and the different ministerial departments should be aware of those small projects and make sure that they are replicated and scaled up. In terms of new legislation for land degradation and land protection against different shocks, against urbanization, against the climate change. So soil should be on climate finance as a priority, not only for climate mitigation, but also for adaptation and for adaptation with co-benefits. Probably the future of soil degradation and soil protection and soil conservation should come partly from the climate finance, and we are not doing in the region very good on that. I can expand on the situation in terms of access to finance. We are doing better in energy than anything else. Soil that is doing a lot in terms of mitigation and adaptation is not yet high from the regional perspective, at least in draining finance from the global finance mechanisms, particularly the Green Fund. And I'm glad that there are projects, global projects that are considering the region with projects on land conservation for carbon sequestration. So with this, I will hand over to you, Victoria, and thank you again, and thanks to the distinguished panelists for a very rich set of intervention, very short but very rich and diverse. And I hope to see a short document that is summing up the very interesting points that were raised today as a contribution to celebrating the Desertification and Drought Day in this region. And thanks for all organizations involved in planning and implementing this events. That was by all means rich and successful. Back to you, Victoria. I'm sorry if I was too long.
Don't worry, it's okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ham, for summarizing this so perfectly. And yes, there will be a short report, just also again summarizing a bit what happened today. And of course, we can make a longer report with all the points. And like we said, we also want to see what else is necessary, where can we go from here, where can we take this. I just shared in the chat a link for a feedback form and the link to the YouTube where you can watch the whole thing again. You can share with your colleagues, friends, whoever you think should know of this and watch it. And also my email address if there are further questions. If you are interested in cooperations or you want to discuss specific topics, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm sure we can arrange something. Now, I would like to thank again Dr. Ham for this really perfect summary of the event. Dr. Amgad for moderating the panel, for asking these very necessary questions. And I know there were so many more, and I'm sorry that we didn't have that much time to address more, but I really hope that from here we can continue and take this on a bigger level. I would also like again to thank our panelists, Dr. Iman, Camilla, Chandra, Dr. Beza, Professor Dr. Ismail, Helmi, Hani. Really, thank you so much for being part of this, for contributing, for sharing your expert insights. It was a huge delight. Then I would also like to thank IVME and Carter for co-organizing with us. I need to thank Richard from the RWTH Aachen for supporting us with the link and everything around YouTube. He is the one behind it. And also Sigurd for covering up and supporting while my network was crashing a little bit. I'm very, very happy with the outcome. I know it was short time for an intense topic, but I think it was a good start. And yes, I wish you all a lovely weekend.
And last but not least, a big thank you to Victoria for organizing most of it and making it all happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you, everyone.